You talk too much. You explain yourself when no one asked. You fill silence like it's suffocating you. You perform your competence instead of possessing it. And every word you speak is a confession of weakness. This video will dissect why. But understand this. Once you see what I'm about to show you, you cannot return to who you were. You will recognize yourself in every behavior I expose. You will feel the weight of every conversation you contaminated with neediness. And you will understand why people who truly hold power rarely speak at all. If you're looking for comfort, close this now. If you came here to feel better about yourself, you're in the wrong place. This is not motivation. This is vivisection. Most of you should stop watching, not because the information is difficult, but because applying it requires you to abandon the identity you've spent your entire life constructing. The identity of the explainer, the performer, the approval addict who mistakes visibility for value. Machiavelli understood something most people never grasp. Power operates in inverse proportion to explanation. The king does not justify his throne. The predator does not announce its presence. The surgeon does not ask permission before cutting. You do all three, constantly. And that is why you are not confident. You are compensating. Confidence does not need an audience. Insecurity demands one. Here is your warning. This video will make you aware of behaviors you perform dozens of times per day. Behaviors that telegraph weakness. Behaviors that train others to dismiss you. Once you see them, you will notice them in real time. In meetings, in conversations, in texts, and you will feel exposed. That discomfort is the price of transformation. Most will pay it for approximately 18 minutes, then return to their patterns. Because awareness without execution is just intellectual masturbation. And you've been doing that your entire life. Let's begin. You speak to fill space, not because you have something to say, not because silence demands breaking, but because you cannot tolerate the weight of being observed without performing. And every unnecessary word you speak is a leak, a hemorrhage of perceived authority. Listen to how you answer simple questions. Someone asks where you're from. You don't say the city. You give them your entire migration history, the socioeconomic context, 3 justifications for why you ended up there, and a preemptive defense against any judgment they haven't made. You turn a one-word answer into a monologue because you believe volume equals value. It doesn't. Machiavelli wrote that the lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. You are neither. You are the prey animal that makes noise in the brush, alerting every predator within earshot that you are nervous, uncertain, and easy to take. Here is what confident people understand. Every word you speak is a negotiation, and the more you offer without being asked, the lower your value becomes. Scarcity creates demand. Abundance creates indifference. You are abundant. You flood the market with yourself, and the market adjusts accordingly. The correction is surgical. When asked a question, answer it. Nothing more. No context unless requested. No justification unless challenged. No performance. The person who can sit in silence after speaking holds the room. The person who keeps talking to avoid silence surrenders it. Watch what happens when you stop filling dead air. Others rush to fill it instead. They explain themselves to you. They seek your approval. They perform. And in that moment, the power dynamic inverts. Not because you did anything, but because you didn't. Silence is pressure, and pressure reveals hierarchy. Confident people do not announce their abilities. They demonstrate them when required and remain silent otherwise. You do the opposite. You list your credentials before anyone asks. You mention your past successes in unrelated conversations. You drop names, degrees, achievements into dialogue like breadcrumbs, hoping someone will follow the trail back to respecting you. This is not confidence. This is begging with a resume. Machiavelli observed that men judge by appearances and outcomes, not by intent or effort. You focus on intent. You explain how hard you worked, how much you know, how qualified you are, and every explanation is evidence that you do not believe your work will speak for itself, because it won't. Not if you keep speaking over it. Here's the dynamic you're missing. When you tell people you're competent, you transfer the burden of proof onto yourself. You make a claim. Now they evaluate it, And most of the time, they find you lacking. Not because you are, but because you set the standard too high by speaking first. The master does not declare mastery. He waits for others to notice. And when they do, he says nothing, because agreement would lower him and denial would sound false. Silence confirms what competence already proved. You fear this approach because it requires you to trust your work. And you don't. You need validation before the outcome. You need reassurance that you're on the right path. You need someone to tell you you're good enough before you even begin. So you talk, you explain, you build the case for yourself preemptively, and in doing so, you communicate exactly one thing. I am not certain. The correction is simple but unbearable for you. Stop mentioning what you've done. Stop contextualizing your competence. Stop defending abilities no one questioned. Let your work exist without your narration. If it's good, they'll notice. If it's not, your words won't save it anyway. This terrifies you because it removes your safety net. Good. You were never supposed to have one. Someone insults you, you respond immediately. Someone questions your judgment, you explain yourself at length. Someone challenges your position, you defend it with escalating intensity. And every single time, you lose. Not because your arguments are weak, but because you entered the arena at all. Machiavelli knew that the appearance of being unaffected is more powerful than actually winning. Because victory in argument is temporary, perception of invulnerability is permanent. You react because you believe silence equals consent. It doesn't. Silence equals disinterest. And disinterest is the ultimate dismissal. When you defend yourself, you communicate that the accusation had weight. When you explain yourself, you admit the confusion was reasonable. When you argue, you grant your opponent equal footing. And equal footing is a loss when you should have been above engagement entirely. Watch how often you argue with people whose opinions do not materially affect your life. Strangers online, co-workers outside your department, family members you see twice a year. You spend hours constructing rebuttals to people who will forget the conversation by tomorrow. You fight battles that do not exist on maps that do not matter. This is not conviction. This is compulsion. The confident do not explain themselves to those who lack the capacity to understand or the authority to judge. They let accusations evaporate. They let misunderstandings persist. They let others be wrong, because being right in someone else's mind is not a reward. It's a distraction. The correction, when challenged, pause, not to formulate a response, but to determine if a response is required at all. Most of the time it isn't. Most attacks are invitations to lower yourself, to wrestle in mud with someone who has nothing to lose. Do not accept the invitation. Let them speak. Let them accuse. Let them interpret your silence however they need to, and move forward as if the interaction never occurred. Because in your world, the world you control, it didn't. This will feel like cowardice at first. It isn't. It's sovereignty. You are always available. You respond to messages within minutes. You attend every meeting. You make yourself accessible because you believe availability equals value. It doesn't. It equals disposability. Machiavelli understood that men desire what is withheld and discard what is freely given. You give freely. You offer your time, your attention, your energy without hesitation, without price, without boundary. And the world treats you accordingly, as background noise. Here is what you don't understand. Your presence only holds value when your absence is felt. If you are always there, you are never missed. If you are always responsive, you are never prioritized. If you are always accessible, you are never respected. You think this is connection, it's contamination. You dilute your own worth by flooding every space with yourself. Watch what happens when someone of actual value enters a room. They do not announce themselves. They do not engage everyone. They do not stay long. And when they leave, the room notices, because their presence was scarce, and scarcity is the only thing human beings instinctively value. You do the opposite. You linger. You follow up. You check in. You make sure people know you're still there, still available, still eager. And every instance of this behavior trains them to take you for granted. The correction is withdrawal, not as punishment, not as manipulation, but as recalibration. Stop being the first to message. Stop filling every silence in group settings. Stop attending events where your presence is expected but not essential. Disappear from spaces where you are furniture. You will panic. You will feel forgotten. You will convince yourself that absence equals irrelevance. You're wrong. Absence creates vacuum, and vacuum creates pull. The people who matter will reach out. The people who don't won't. And you will finally see the difference between those who value you and those who simply used your availability. This is not a game. This is territorial reclamation. You have given everyone access to you without requiring anything in return. Now you're taking it back. If you're uncomfortable with this, it's because you've built your entire identity on being needed. You're not needed. You're convenient. There's a difference. And it's time you learned it. You've decided what you're going to do. Then you ask for input, not because you want advice, but because you need validation. You need someone else to confirm that your choice is acceptable. And in doing so, you transfer authority over your life to anyone willing to offer an opinion. This is abdication. Machiavelli wrote that the prince who depends on fortune is ruined when fortune changes. You depend on consensus, on approval, on external confirmation that you are allowed to proceed. And every time you seek permission for a decision you should own entirely, you communicate that you do not trust your own judgment. Neither does anyone else now. Here's the mechanism. When you ask for opinions, you create evaluators. People who now believe they have a stake in your outcome. And if your decision fails, they will remind you that they had reservations. If it succeeds, they will claim partial credit. Either way, you have given away ownership. Confident people decide, then inform. Not to be arrogant, but because they understand that leadership is not consensus building. It is clarity. It is the willingness to be wrong alone rather than right collectively. It is the refusal to outsource accountability. You fear this because you fear isolation. You believe that if you make decisions without input, you will be abandoned. You will be seen as difficult, as stubborn, as unteachable. So you crowdsource your life. You invite everyone into your decision-making process and then wonder why you feel like you're living someone else's priorities. The correction? Stop asking unless you genuinely need expertise you do not possess. If you're asking to feel better, don't. If you're asking to avoid blame, own it anyway. If you're asking because you think collaboration is inherently virtuous, understand that most collaboration is just diluted accountability. Make the decision. Inform those who need to know. Proceed. If you fail, it's yours. If you succeed, it's yours. And over time, people will stop offering unsolicited opinions, not because they don't care, but because they recognize you do not require their permission to exist. That recognition is respect, and you will never receive it as long as you keep asking for it. You overshare. You tell people about your struggles, your doubts, your fears. You believe this is vulnerability. You believe this is connection. You believe this is what separates you from the cold, emotionally unavailable people you've been taught to pity. You're wrong. What you call authenticity is strategic incompetence. You are weaponizing your weakness, hoping that by exposing it first, others will not use it against you. But they will, not maliciously, but inevitably, because you have given them the blueprint. Machiavelli understood that it is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. You are neither. You are pitied, because you have made yourself pitiable. You have taken every internal struggle and made it a public performance, hoping someone in the audience will validate your suffering. No one will. They will nod. They will sympathize. They will tell you it's brave to share. And then they will categorize you as someone who needs management, someone who requires emotional labor, someone who is not safe to rely on because they cannot even rely on themselves. Here is what you do not understand. People bond over competence, not commiseration. They want to follow those who have solved the problems they still face. They want proximity to strength, not solidarity in weakness. Every time you share your struggles without having first overcome them, you are asking others to carry weight you should be bearing alone. This is not connection. This is delegation of discomfort. The confident share selectively. They share victories, not battles. They share lessons, not wounds. They allow others to witness their competence, not their chaos. And when they do share struggle, it is past tense. It is resolved. It is a scar, not a bleeding edge. You do the opposite. You live stream your breakdown and call it authenticity. The correction: stop confessing to people who did not sign up to be your therapist. Stop using every conversation as an opportunity to unload. Stop mistaking emotional exhibitionism for depth. If you have a problem, solve it. Then if it's relevant, share what you learned. But do not invite others into your unresolved chaos and expect them to respect you afterward. They won't, because you have communicated that you are not in control, and people do not follow those who are not in control. They tolerate them. They manage them. They root around them. Is that what you want? Then continue as you are. But if you want respect, you must first demonstrate that you respect yourself enough to handle your own weight. No one else is coming to do it for you. You are standing at a threshold. Behind you is the person who explained, performed, reacted, and bled attention in every direction. The person who needed validation, who sought permission, who confused volume with value. Ahead of you is someone quieter, not because they have less to say, but because they have nothing to prove. They do not announce. They do not defend. They do not fill silence with noise or absence with panic. They exist with the certainty of someone who knows their value does not require external confirmation. That person is not you yet, but they could be. If you are willing to endure the discomfort of invisibility, if you are willing to let people misunderstand you without correction, if you are willing to stop performing and start possessing. Most will not. Most will watch this video, feel momentarily aware, then return to the same patterns by tomorrow. Because awareness is not transformation. Discomfort is. And most people will choose the familiar ache of being overlooked over the sharp pain of becoming unavailable. But you are not most people, or you wouldn't still be here. There is more. Deeper principles, more precise dissections. But they are not for public consumption, not because they're secret, but because they're dangerous in the hands of people who have not yet mastered what you just learned. Machiavelli wrote for princes, not for the masses. This video was for those ready to stop being subjects. If you've made it this far, you've passed the first filter. Now the question is whether you'll actually apply it, or whether you'll do what most do: intellectualize, rationalize, then return to the comfortable prison of seeking approval from people who will never grant it. The choice is yours. But understand this: once you see the dynamic, you cannot unsee it. Every conversation you have from this point forward will either confirm your evolution or expose your regression. You are being watched by yourself. Don't disappoint.